Now is the time in our service for a moment of pause, a moment of contemplation, prayer, meditation. Spirit of life and love, bigger than the universe, smaller than a grain of sand, be with us today. The world moves every day, and we move with it. But as we move, give us the grace and peace and strength to respond with kindness, to respond with love, to respond with determination when we encounter surprises or that which will throw us off kilter. May we remember that, yes, sorrow and pain are real, and so is love, love that abides. May we be present to the love that surrounds us, and may we be brave to offer love as we encounter this world. May it be so. One of the aspects of Mother's Day that I find really poignant in this country is that it actually took 2 attempts to make Mother's Day a holiday. And the first attempt really came from a movement of radicals and abolitionists and social justice pacifists who tried in the aftermath of the American Civil War to create Mother's Day for peace. And they say at one point, 18 cities adopted proclamations for Mother's Day for peace. Boston did this for 10 years until the Gilded Age. And it was founded on this idea, so Unitarian, that there is a possibility that in this world there can be love and compassion as the guiding central values that unite us. And that in a world in the 19th century where colonialism was rife and imperialism was real and the aftermath of the Civil War was an everyday reality, there were people who were saying, we need a holiday, another holiday anchored in this commitment to family, and not family as a fortress, but family as an invitation to imagine how we can be kind and reimagine how to be. Yet that first push for Mother's Day for peace did not quite last. And as the Gilded Age wealth grew and grew, and as the wars continued, that push became more quiet. But then in the earlier 20th century, there was another effort to make Mother's Day. And it was one that ultimately was adopted by the YMCA and signed into proclamation by President Woodrow Wilson. And the founders of that movement were Methodists who wanted to create a holiday anchored in family and sentiment and to create a refuge from the cruelties of the time of the world. But some of the initial founders of that movement by the 1920s actually got very annoyed at what had happened to Mother's Day. In fact, one of the founders of that second push said that the Mother's Day card is a cheap excuse for the letter that you should write to your mother. And these efforts begin in earnestness, and sometimes they get taken over, either by the times or by those trying to make a buck off a beautiful idea. Yet, both of these efforts show that as people, we can say what is does not have to be, and that there are different values that we can put into the wider culture to try to shift who we are called and how we live. In the ancient books, the prophet Isaiah said, "As one whom his mother comforts, so I will comfort you. And ye shall be comforted, you shall be comforted in Jerusalem." Even these ancient texts, which were created in times drenched in patriarchy, have these moments that burst through of holy work, of a different vision, of stories of protection that wake us up to say what is doesn't have to be. Across the Middle East in the ancient times, so many visions of God, even in the Bible, were about a warrior, a conqueror, someone violent and cruel, causing lightning and thunderstorms and floods. Yet, in these same ancient words, we hear a vision where God is a mother who is protecting the children of a city. Other scripture talks about God as a mother hen who seeks to protect the flock of people under her wings. In Islamic tradition, there's a hadith that says, we were with the messenger of Allah on a journey when he walked apart from us. In his absence, we saw a red bird with 2 young ones, and we caught them. And the red mother bird came, hovering and flapping her wings. In the meantime, the Prophet returned and said, who put this bird into distress because of its young? Return them to her. Again and again, there are motives in the ancient scriptures that talk about protection, defense, love, nurturance, that counter the ancient ways of warfare and dominance. And behind me are reflecting not just Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, but traditions from Zoroastrianism to Yoruba, visions of faith that each have different pathways to get to goodness, each lift up different words and stories and symbols, but offer us a place and way to wrestle with how are we to be connected and good and kind and grow and nurture and protect and love and be generous. Each of the traditions reflected in the flags in this sanctuary points us to a way of thinking about life and love and invites us into a whole universe of stories that can challenge our everyday living. Among the Irish Unitarians is a poem still popular called Many Gods, Many Creeds. So many gods, so many creeds, so many paths that wind and weave, while all this sad world needs is just the art of being kind. All this sad world needs is just the art of being kind. When we gather in a space like this, where we say each night a child is born is a holy night, we affirm a tradition that says every person in the whole world has dignity. And we can organize our lives to recognize or reject that premise. But the truth is, it's hard to do that alone. Some people can, but most of us, I would say most of us, certainly me, need a group of people to walk with and accompany and grow and challenge and figure out how can we as a gathered group live our faith. Whenever I come into this sanctuary, I think of those over the past nearly 2 centuries who have been part of the unfolding story of the Unitarian Church of Staten Island in the 19th century, in the 20th, in this ongoing 21st. There were people at the beginning of this congregation who joined what was the precursor to the American Red Cross, the Sanitary Commission, in the midst of the U.S. Civil War, and who dedicated their lives to caring for people with the wounds of that conflict for freedom. In the aftermath of the war, there were people on this island who gathered and worked for the public school movement, who made sure that when this particular sanctuary building was built, a library was attached to it from its start, so that this meeting house would not just be a space for worship, but a lending library for the wider island. There were people going back to the 1850s, 2 buildings ago, who have sung in our choir, who have lifted their voice and said that music is holy and good and a reflection of what is beautiful in this world, and we should gather in a certain time, in a certain moment, to lift our voices and instruments to inspire one another. There are all the graphic artists over the decades who've created our ever-changing logos, branding, letterhead, signage, posters, invitations, all the hidden and beloved graphic arts that shape our understanding of tradition and place. There's a photo you can see in the library where it's 2 children standing in front of this sanctuary in 1895. There are so many people who have walked in the room, who have gone on to walk into so many other rooms. Amidst the Second World War, members of this congregation served in the armed forces, including our minister, who was a chaplain, whose a great nephew actually contacted me to learn more about what his grandfather's connection or great uncle's connection to this congregation was. There are those who during the Cold War on this island worked to preserve green space and prevent highways from being constructed allowing people across Staten Island to benefit from the beautiful verdant colors that surround us. And from the First World War to Vietnam, to the aftermath of 9/11, to this very month, there are people in this congregation who have been part of multi-decade campaigns for peacemaking, peace building, and peacekeeping, earnestly engaging the public in reimagining the role of what power looks like and how it could be put to use for love and healing. Father Daniel Berrigan, himself a disciple of the great foremother of Staten Island, Dorothy Day, the decades-long peace activist, actually spoke in this sanctuary. Those before us once said in our weekly affirmation, "In the quest for truth in the spirit of Jesus, we unite in worship and service." And yet, since at least the time of Reverend Horace Pulpit in the 1970s and 80s, we have said, in the search for truth and the spirit of love, we unite in worship and fellowship. This Mother's Day for Peace, as we think back to the multi-decade campaign to establish what has become Mother's Day and the multiple values that have been put forward under this holiday to try to imagine a different way in the world, I recall those who have participated in the ongoing, unfolding story of the Unitarian Church of Staten Island. Because just as it took decades for Mother's Day to become part of our culture and to constantly be reimagined, so it has taken decades to create what this congregation is. And as we get closer to officially 2 centuries of the Unitarian Church of Staten Island, I think it is a blessing and an opportunity for us to consider what must be our declaration to this island in this time of upheaval. The people before us face so many crises. I'm sure in the midst of the Depression, there were real questions about the viability of the congregation itself. And yet, when that was happening, people found a way to nurture and support and sustain this community so that we, nearly 100 years later, can gather on this amazing spring day and be enriched by song and silence and meditation and friendship. So what must be our declaration? What can we learn from those who have come before us? Anna Garland Spencer, who is a New Yorker, a Unitarian minister, and a leader in the ethical movement at the beginning of the 20th century, once said, perhaps with a wry smile, "Church was humanity's poor attempt to honor the divine in the world." And she didn't mean that to disparage the church, but to lovingly say, we're all doing our best. We're all trying, and we are not perfect. But when we get together, something amazing can happen that happens because we're together. So this Mother's Day for Peace, let us recommit to those values that have anchored so many from ancient times, with Isaiah calling us to mother one another as the Spirit divine mothers those seeking shelter and refuge in Jerusalem. And may we remember those words that are emblazoned at the bottom of the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp besides the golden door. Inspired by our foremothers in faith, in this congregation, we can do our part to make that vision and the visions we pledge real inside our sanctuary walls and far beyond. Each night a child is born is a holy night. Happy Mother's Day for Peace.
Our closing hymn today will be in the gray hymnal 118, Little Light of Mine. I invite you to join me in extinguishing our chalice. You can find the affirmation in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment, for these we carry in our hearts, and so we are together again.
May you go in peace this Mother's Day. May you give and receive peace. And may you remember that all this sad world needs is the art of being kind. May we bring that and receive that and give that to one another. Go in peace.
And so ends our service. We can kind of dance out of here. And please join us in the parish hall for hospitality. Thank you.